Hi everyone. My name is Erica. I'm a QHHT Level 3 practitioner from Cape Town, South Africa, and we're very lucky once again to have Tracie Mahan on the show. She's also a Level 3 practitioner, and she's from Portland, Oregon, as I understand it, Tracie.
Yes,
Welcome back, and good to see you again.
thank you. It's great to be
Uh,
here. I'm excited about
yes.
what we're talking about today.
Yes. Okay, so I really wanted to talk about what people could expect during a QHHT session. And I thought, having Tracie on because she facilitated my level 3 training and she has hundreds, of sessions under her belt. I mean, being the practitioner, but also being the client. So having people do QHHT on her, so have I. But Tracie is also a channel and she channels the Arcturian. So she can actually explain to us what it feels like to channel as well. So I thought Tracie would be the fabulous person to have, just to kind of talk about a couple of points, what people can expect and also, generally what hypnosis is. Okay, so Tracie, let's start with the first thing. The first point I made was what one can realistically expect. So if you look at the general populace, I would say about 95% of the population would experience the session the way we're going to explain it now. There's a very small part of the population, we call them somnambulists, who completely, forget what happens during a session. But it's such a small like percentage, so didn't want to go into that because it's not really worth speaking about. It's worth speaking about what the general populace could experience. So the first one was, I was a little bit frustrated about the actual word hypnosis, Tracie,
Yeah.
and we're talking because it comes with preconceived notions and expectations. I think that was kind of created by Hollywood and stage hypnosis. Would you like to talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so what we're doing is more of a therapeutical hypnosis, which I think in the earlier years of discovering hypnotic states, that's where the stage hypnosis and Hollywood hypnosis and that kind of stuff developed. But then it started to evolve and more understanding that, oh, we could really do some good healing work here with that. So yeah, Hollywood, that type, the stage hypnosis, they're a different kind of hypnosis than what we do. We're working more with a therapeutic version of it that takes us into a different part of that hypnotic state. So
Yeah. Almost like more. I always almost want to like replace the word with guided meditation or deep meditation. I think that's more of an understanding. So the first concern people like usually come and see me, they have the concern that they're not hypnotizable. And then the first thing I usually ask them is, what is your definition of hypnosis? And usually their definition, because first, if we need to understand what your understanding is if you're going to ask me the question. And then usually their understanding of hypnosis is they're completely unconscious. The conscious mind is eliminated, or slash the ego is eliminated, and it's almost like the voice of God is speaking through them. It's not like their own self. So, if that's your definition of hypnosis, then yes, cannot, it cannot be successful because that is not everyone's experience. So, can we maybe talk
yeah,
about, yeah, do you have anything to say about that?
I do. I have clients that come in and they think a movie is going to play in front of them.
Yes.
You know, they
Yeah.
they think that they're going to knock out, they're going to see something that looks similar to like a movie, and then when they come back, they're going to get this recording and they're going to forget everything that happened. Part of the I think the influence of that is that back when Dolores started doing this work, our veil to the higher self was way thicker, as they say, the veil's thinning.
Yes.
So the work that Dolores was doing with her clients was evolving our souls, and it works on a collective level, so as she was doing her work and the recordings that she has out there, it does kind of have that illusion that people are knocking out, telling these elaborate stories, and then coming back and not remembering anything they said. And that's no longer a truth. And Julia and I have talked about that a few times. It's no longer that way because that veil is so thin that we can actually just sit here and talk to our higher selves all day long.
Yes.
And that's why people are wondering, well, it didn't look like that. It didn't look like the one Dolores had. It's not going to anymore. They're just not.
Mm,
The and it's a good thing. It's because we're evolving. It's
mm,
because we have a bigger and better understanding of what is our higher self or superconscious mind. And we, because of Dolores and her books and the practice that she did, and then all of us that have followed along in her footsteps, it just keeps evolving to an easier, better, quicker connection to that part,
yes.
and we're more aware. So
Yes, exactly. Okay, so you're saying when Dolores was doing the work in the 70s, 80s, the higher self was less dominant and more recessive. Now, as like we have evolved as human beings, and the frequency on the planet has raised, now our higher self is almost running parallel, more parallel, it's more dominant now. So, which is
yeah,
why we can just access and kind of pluck information from that quantum cloud because we're way more connected. Yes.
yeah,
Okay, it makes sense. Okay.
yeah.
And then also the next thing the next point I had was when you're hypnotized, you don't feel hypnotized. So you can't, sometimes normally you can't tell you're hypnotized because why is that? Is because, we go in and out of hypnotic brain waves during the day. I don't know, should we go through the like 4 or 5 brain waves? Probably be good to just quickly touch on it, right? Would you like to do that?
I wouldn't like to do that because I forget them.
Okay. Okay, I'll do it.
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay, so why we don't feel hypnotized is because we're going in and out of hypnotic trance or state during the day. We can't just stay in one hypnosis state. So we have beta when we're completely awake, which is what Tracie and I probably are on beta brainwave. So the brainwave is actually quite spiky. It looks like this if you measure it on those frequency machines, which is, we're actually in that brainwave state. We're basically living in the past, living in the future. We're not really in the present. We're in fight, flight, freeze, fawn. So that's where we are the majority of the day, which basically does physical destruction to the human body, but also to the psyche. So we should actually be in theta or gamma, but we're not. After beta, you've got alpha, which is the lightest form of trance. That's kind of that atmospheric trance where it's kind of like when you drive somewhere familiar, you don't even know how you got there, where you watch a movie and you kind of go into this unconscious like download. Everything else gets blocked out and you're just like entranced by this one thing. That is alpha. So even now, Tracie probably would have gone into alpha just listening to my voice. Then you have theta, which is right before you fall asleep and right before you wake up, that visual part of the brain, and then delta when you're completely asleep, and then gamma, which they call the God spark, which is sometimes maybe the second half of the technique would get you to gamma, which is that overflowing feeling of love in the heart. So as you can see, you put yourself in and out of those 5 brainwaves throughout the day. You're slipping in and out. So when a practitioner is working with you, which like a guided meditation is, you allowing the practitioner to guide you into a relaxed state in which you go in and out of those brainwave states yourself, which is why they always say all hypnosis is self-hypnosis. And when you're hypnotized, you don't feel hypnotized. You feel normal. Yeah. And like Tracie said, it doesn't necessarily have to be like a TV screen. So, people are worried that they can't visualize. But, I'm an architect, and even when I visualize, it's like fuzzy. It's not a TV screen that's in front of my face. And
Mm.
also, I'm emotionally feeling the scenes almost more than I'm actually seeing the scenes. So don't expect to see a movie. You're using your imagination to build up a scene in order so that we can get you in the right side of your brain, that visual part, and into the theta brain, which is basically, we believe the theta brainwave is the telephone line to your higher self, or the highway in and out of your Akashic records without judgment. Do you have anything to say about? I was just saying about that. Sorry, I
Yeah,
went into like a.
I'm just sitting here going, "God, I should write all that down. You did that so well." But it's. I think it's a surprising thing. When I learned this, I know I was a little surprised that we are only actually in a conscious state about 10% of the day, give or
Yeah.
take. And then the rest of it, we're in some sort of altered state of consciousness.
Mm,
So when people say I can't be hypnotized, um, everyone can be hypnotized. I know when I started way back, I think 2007 is when I took my first hypnosis course. Was I was I was a little bit too much in the brain, right? I wanted to know how everything worked and all this. But as time went on and practice sessions went on and all the things,
Mm,
oh my gosh, I could go into hypnosis like that. So I know
mm,
everyone can. I think it's our inquisitive minds. Why did she ask me that? Why do I still feel so connected? Why am I, and our like you were saying, that ego part, or that critical mind wants to get in there and start messing around with that relaxed state. So I always suggest to people to, just go with the flow of everything, be in the open mind, don't question it, just be with that. And we tell people, go with that very first thought, that very first thing that pops into your mind, and trust,
mm,
and then put that into the words, and start talking about it. Um,
mm,
the the altered state of hypnosis, there's so many levels to it. And even
mm,
our conversations, like you and I are so focused on what each other are saying that we're in an altered state. There's other things going on in our rooms that we're not aware of because, we're in this altered state. So, our air conditioners or heaters click on and off, our computers are making noises, things are going on, and we're oblivious to it because we are in an altered
mm,
state of conversation. I think people are usually surprised when I will be talking to them in their interview, and they'll say something to me about, well, I don't know if I can go under. I've never been hypnotized before. And I'll say,
mm,
so did you hear the opening and closing of the front door about 5 minutes ago? And they'll be like, what? No, I didn't notice somebody came in the office. And I'll be like, that was a state of hypnosis. You were already in
mm,
hypnosis. We're just going to go deeper.
mm,
And so just relax and try not to overthink it, because yeah, you're going to be aware. When I go in hypnosis,
mm,
I'm almost hyper aware of
mm,
everything, but I'm so relaxed it doesn't matter. You could run a
mm,
bus through the room and I'd be like, there's a bus going through the room right now, and I'm just in this nice relaxed place. I even have, by my office there is a train that goes by, and they will blow their whistle right around my office, and it's literally like you walk out my office and you can see the tracks, and it's like,
mm,
this train always picks when I have people under to go by. And so I try to tell them there will be a train most likely that goes by, just so that and because you can feel the shake, you can hear
mm,
dunk 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 dunk, as it's going through. And I forgot to tell a gal one time, and so here comes the train that's going through, and you can kind of feel the room gets a little shaky because it's a heavy train, right? At the end of her session, I was like, I'm really sorry, I forgot to tell you about the train. I hope that didn't disturb you. And she goes, oh no, I just thought we were having an earthquake. And then the
mm.
whistle blew and I realized it was a train. I was like, you just laid
But
there,
it didn't
but
bother him.
that's how
Yeah.
relaxed she was. She was aware, but she was very
Mm,
relaxed. And we just, as we were in the session, I just kept going with it. And there was no interruption. So even if there are things going on around you, um, I've listened to a lot of recordings of other people's sessions too, and I cannot tell
mm,
you how many times I get a recording where
mm,
wherever their office is, it is by a major intersection. And it's like horns honking and traffic and vroom, vroom, and people
mm,
walking by and talking, and it's all in the recording. And that person that's under is under.
yeah. Yeah,
It's
I
not
know.
bothering
So
them. So,
yeah. I think that's in summary of that point is, you're aware of the noises or the sounds around you, but it does not bother you. Who it does bother
yeah.
is the hypnotist. So like for me, I'm in a very quiet area right now. But sometime I don't know, the other day, about 2 weeks ago, I was doing a session as what I swear every form of transport, like craft, came by in like 5 minutes. Like there were motorbikes, there were trucks, there were cars, there was actually
Sirens.
airplanes and
Yeah.
helicopters, and every single, probably like a UFO also flew over at that stage, but it like
Right.
didn't bother. And then it was like bothering me. I'm like, oh shoot, this is gonna bother the client. I'm so worried about the client, blah blah. And I told her afterwards, I'm like, cut that freaking noise. She's like, what noise? Okay, fine. It
Yeah.
doesn't bother them, it bothers us. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Exactly.
So just to summarize the previous point, so you're not asleep, you're completely conscious and aware and awake, and no one is controlling you during hypnosis. You can get up and walk out
Absolutely.
anytime you want. And any time of the session, you can open up your eyes and move out. So I don't know, this point almost can't be stressed enough because I do, I have it on my website and I do talk about it beforehand to clients as well. But then afterwards, I still hear, that same thing. And then I say, but I told you this before already. So that's once again coming in with these expectations, reading maybe convoluted universe books or these kinds of material from the Loris Canon and expecting this to be your session. We'll talk about expectations a little bit later, but that is not the case for everyone. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Uh, you're talking about
Mhm.
their expectation of where they might go in a session or how that feels. I want to clarify that.
Yeah, both. I think both. Yeah.
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 Yeah, and
Okay.
it's
So then the
really
next.
a good idea. If you are the client, it's a good idea to express your thoughts to your practitioner about what
Mm,
those if you came in with expectations, tell them what they are so that they can help you understand what this might really look like for you. You know,
yes.
definitely I've had I've had them come in and be like, and I'll say, you're not going to disappear. Nothing's taking over your body. It's still you and your higher self, which you are in communication with throughout your day. We're just getting a more sharp and clear communication with it, and blah, blah, blah. And this is what it will look like. And then afterwards, I've had one gal went through that whole thing with her, and she's like, I really thought that I was just going to go out and then you were going to tell me what happened. And I'm like, but we already talked about that. So sometimes it still is stuck there somewhere that's what's going to happen. So to be very
Yes.
clear with everyone, you're not
Yes.
going to like let's say I think I've probably done I was trying to figure that out. It's probably over 500, between 5 and 600 sessions at this point
Wow.
of QHHT, and I maybe have had 2 people that didn't remember their session out of
Yes.
that many. So if that helps you get a little
Yeah.
clarity over the
Yeah.
years from 2007, from when I started doing hypnosis to now,
Hmm.
I think I've only had 2 people come in my office where they came out of hypnosis and thought, "What? Why are you bringing me up already?" Like nothing happened, and they had this whole session. So it's so rare, and you know, but yeah, most people they remember it. Here's the thing though, is it's kind of like that dream, right? You wake up and you have this dream and you're like, oh, I got to tell my friend about my dream. And then you go make
Mm,
a cup of coffee and then you're
yes.
like, wait a minute, what was that dream? I remember this and I remember that. And then by the time you're to work to tell the friend, you've forgotten your dream. A
Exactly.
lot of that happens. It's like that.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
you're in it, you're just like when you're in the dream, it's so real and it's so impactful, and you got all this stuff, and if you don't write it down right away, which is why we record them, then you're going to have that forgetfulness and it's going to start fading, and then when you re-listen to your recording, you're going to be like, wow, I don't even remember that
Mm,
part. And that
yes.
part is a little more exciting. Like to get to listen to it and be like, oh, I forgot I said that. Oh, I forgot we went there. That kinda helps you understand that, yeah, you were in a state of hypnosis.
Yes, exactly. When you re-listen to the recording, that's why we always tell people when they say afterwards, it's not what I expected or I was too conscious, like go home and listen to the recording because it
Yeah.
might not be at all what you expect. But also when you go home, you're going to put the puzzle pieces into place and you're going to figure out more things. And then the next 3 days
Yeah.
after the session, the universe is showing you all these signs and symbols and like because the floodgates have been opened. During sessions like this, we're more open to the higher dimensions, to come and kind of assist. And then 3 days afterwards, I found that there's interaction more, from the higher dimensions and signs and symbols and things start clicking into place, making sense.
Yeah. I tell people to write that stuff down because when you go into a
Mm,
past life, you might get, like, all these little pieces. You get maybe 5 pieces of this past life, and by the time you're on that 3rd day, you
mm,
have a full picture of that whole past life. A lot of people will have that experience, and it totally will evolve. So, yeah, you're still getting information even when you leave the office,
yes,
for sure.
exactly. But also, like, I think we spoke about in our training as well. When you make those, I don't know, 5 to 12 to 15 questions beforehand, just by virtue of making the question, the answer already arises. So it's almost like you come to the session knowing the answer, and then you almost get confirmation. I feel like a lot of people come and see me just to want confirmation of what they already know deep down. Don't you also find that
Yeah.
so interesting?
Oh,
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, I
yeah.
have that conversation too. It's like you sat
Mm,
down and wrote the questions, you probably already started getting some answers with that. But what's really cool about these sessions is, yeah, you may have had those answers come in, but you don't know the question we're going to ask after we ask your question, because we ask more questions. And so that again helps to evolve that answer and go way deeper into how is that answer helping you? What does that answer look like in your day-to-day life? What's
yes.
changing? How is this healing? All the things.
Yes.
So you do have that answer, and then we're going to involve it. And so that part's the exciting part, is we get in there as the QHHT detectives and really dig into the question itself. And sometimes I swear I ask so many questions to a question that I'm like, if this person was in a conscious state, they'd probably roll their eyes at me that I just asked another question. It's like, is it not clear yet? But it is. I
Yeah.
mean, I want to get all the answers for them and as deep as I can with
Mm,
that. So, absolutely.
very good
So,
point. Yeah. Thank you for that.
mhm.
Okay, so the next point I like to talk about is that, people think that something external is going to come through them, as in the voice of God or some kind of possession, which I think is quite creepy, but that is somehow the expectation. Um, but what it actually is it's just, because we eliminate all of these distractions during hypnosis, like the sounds, and you close your eyes, so you're kind of like focused now, then you are able to channel, like, I suppose, more clearer version of yourself. And it's almost like it flows out from the heart, right, Tracie? I don't know if that's how it felt for you as well. It's not something that's like coming, like falling in from the outside. It's almost like people have an
No,
expectation that the only advice to be trusted or that's interesting or valid is from an external source, where this technique teaches us to get in touch with ourselves, to know that we have all the answers within, even though we've been trained away from, our own internal guidance system from childhood as children, to listen to the
yeah,
voices of our parents or society or the churches or whatever. Now this technique teaches us to get in touch with our own internal guidance system. So yeah, do you have anything to say about that the external need versus the internal.
no, in fact, when I talk to people about it, I was like, if you struggle with, am I connected? Just go to that crown chakra and just move your energy up, because it's a part of you. And Julia does this. Julia Cannon is who I'm talking about, Dolores's daughter. She does this drawing where she'll draw this giant circle, and she says, that's
Mm,
your soul. And then she puts a little dot in that circle, and she says,
mm,
and that's you. You're an aspect of this giant circle. So you think
yeah,
that big soul body doesn't have all the answers? It does. You are,
yes,
I'd like to say, we're part of the universe. We're part of that Akashic records. We have access
mm,
to all of it. And that's how we connect to it, is we just get into our soul body, our higher self, whatever you want to label that, and bring that information in. We've already, have that experience to draw from to help us. So it's all right there.
exactly. Yeah, that's a beautiful visual. I like that. Yeah, I'm gonna use that. I'm gonna steal that. Thanks, Julia. Okay, so the next one is, this thing about the ego, which is the conscious mind versus the subconscious mind, the conscious versus the higher self. So what I always tell people as well is, the ego is your terrestrial self, your earthly self. We cannot eliminate the ego. It has basically, been your guard dog, your watchdog, your warden since you were a child. It keeps you safe. All of this is, it is definitely a function and a purpose for the ego. So we cannot eliminate the ego during these kinds of sessions. We ask the ego just to sit to the side and listen to the conversation with your higher self. Um, and during the session as well, what we do as practitioners is we hold space. What does it mean to hold space? It means to hold frequency. So then what happens after the session is the client's frequency will drop again. And then what happens is the ego comes in and questions, doubts, judges everything, which is why we give you the recording. You go home, you listen to the recording, and you start applying all of the steps. You start like putting to practice all of this information you've been getting, because life does not get better by chance. It gets better by change. So go home and make the changes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and you know,
I want to
also,
touch on
so
that too, is,
yes, yes.
like when the clients that contact, and there's not many because most people, by the time they get to a session, they understand that process. But the ones that say, nothing happened after my QHHT session, I'll say, did you
Mm,
listen to the recording? And more
mm,
often than not, they have not. And it's like, you do need to go listen to your recording again, just like you were saying. That's why we send it home with you. Because what happens is you bring back in some of those old patterns. You come back in, you're back in a third dimension, and that 3D stuff is coming at you again. You got to re-listen to it to remind yourself bigger things are happening here. And we're not just this third dimensional aspect of self. So, okay, so go
mm.
ahead.
Yeah,
I'll
so,
let
so the first one was no, no, just please chip in. I'm just going just all over the place. Yeah, I had like perfect like little like steps. Now I'm like going there and there. It's like everywhere. You know how it goes. Okay, so the next one was, we always say to clients like trust the first thing that comes to mind, right? So it's not about don't analyze what you see, don't analyze the first thing that comes in, just say the first thing that comes in. So that you almost go into that flow state, almost like a verbal diarrhea state, but you have to start talking. So that's touching on my previous point is no one's going to talk through you. You need to just start talking. And then it's almost like because many people have done this technique on me as well, and it's like you just need to start talking, then you just go into like a flow state, and then you almost like can't stop talking. And it's this like super
yeah,
confident like version of the self. And the thing is, it's not about even between questions or between topics, it's not about pausing. Because when you start pausing, then the ego starts chiming in, oh, this isn't working, I'm making this up. I spent all this money. Oh my word! I've got to go home now and tell this person that it didn't work. Oh my word! That like that is the voice of the ego. You need to know that that is it. So of course, if we focus on it, it becomes bigger. Once again, we ask the ego to sit to the side and listen to the conversation that we have with the higher self, and then just start talking it as we ask the questions. First thing that comes to mind as well to put us into, because I mean, if the person is in resistance, no one can help them. You have to be in allowance, in flow to allow the information to come
yeah. I try to give people a visual of, this old recording's coming back, right? It's like, oh, that didn't really happen. You made that all up, blah, blah, blah. Visualize unplugging that like it's a recorder that's plugged into the wall and you're unplugging that recorder and not giving it a voice
in.
anymore. Because
Mm,
sometimes it helps to have the visual. I'm a very visual person, so I'll do visual things for
mm,
people. But when we can recognize that this is an old construct that we're replaying, and that ego part of self, that old, you know from birth till now we've been told these things, right? Like, oh, you can't do that, that's impossible, you need to do it
mm,
this way, blah blah blah.
yeah.
And we're retraining the mind because we get what we believe. And so you have to understand that there's belief systems that have to crumble in order for this new belief system to take hold and
Mm,
move. And these old constructs, they didn't happen overnight. They happened over a series of time as you evolved, right? As you grew up, as you aged. And so this is how powerful we are. We can have a session like this, and it can take those belief systems, if you're willing and ready and open to just let them go, as like, okay, anything is possible. I'm
mm,
going to take on this new way of being. I'm going to heal myself. I'm going to make changes. Like you
mm,
said, you don't just walk out and magic happened. It might,
mm,
it could, but a lot of times people will get it. They need to do something. Their higher self will say, well, they need to change their diet. They need to go walk every day. They need to change the way they're talking to people. They need to change the way they're talking to themselves. You have to make changes when you leave that office more often than not. I don't think I could recall a session where someone walked out that didn't their higher self didn't require some sort of change in what they were doing in order to create the change they desired. So, but it
mm,
gives you the answer of what that change is and validates that it needs to happen. So,
exactly. Taking responsibility. Yeah, I like that. Also, anything is possible. Like we need to like expand our consciousness now, not contract it. Makes sense. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay,
I
so the
will
next one.
piggyback though a little bit because I don't want people to get confused. There are instant
Yeah.
healings in there too, as we identify why
Yes.
they're there, what their purpose was. As you learn that, you can heal it. But here's the thing: you're going to walk out that door, and you're going to go back into the world that you could, brought that into. So you have to change that thinking so that the healing can take hold
Mm,
and be solid for you, if I said that right. But yeah, so there are instant healings. Like people will walk out of the room, their back doesn't hurt anymore, the whatever, the knee pain's gone, and all the things, but things that created those things that we went on a journey to discover. If you
yes,
go back to
yes.
doing the same things that created it, it will come back.
Yes,
So
exactly. Yeah, I find that the instantaneous healing occurs if the person has learned the lesson. They know what the actual message is. They've learned the lesson. Okay, now it can be healed. But like you said, if they go back into cancerous households or keep on thinking cancerous thoughts, then the cancer will return, kind of thing. So it's
yeah,
it's up to us to take responsibility and make the changes as well. Okay, and then also the next part was people have the feeling like afterwards, like, I knew that all along. Because, like I said earlier, deep down we have all the answers. So it's just once again getting to the next point, which is trust. I found that after sessions, people, are not trusting of, the past lives or the visuals or the higher self coming through. Um, they're not trusting that all the answers are within, basically. It's almost like they once again expected someone else to come and save them or to give them the answer, almost like a psychic or something, whatever, to give them the answer, almost to predict something like that. Um, which I think is a lesson in itself, which those clients, I do find that they are not really trusting of themselves, which is a theme throughout the session. I'm not sure if this is something that you also is a theme that you're seeing right now.
where they're not trusting the information
Yeah,
they're yeah,
yeah.
like, and it is part of that human experience, right? Am I making this up? Am I, did I, yeah, but I mean, we're talking thousands and thousands of people that have had sessions like this, that have had healings. Are we all making it up? No. That is that part of ourselves again that we want to trace back. Where is it that you don't feel worthy of that healing, where you want to doubt it and sabotage it or bring it out? And that's, those are some of the things that we go into as practitioners. We find that in the interviews where maybe there's an old that old program is where I'm going to go a lot. The old program growing up, was there somebody in your family that made you feel like you didn't deserve what everybody else has? Is there somebody in the is there a place in your life where somebody said you can't? There's somewhere, there's a clue somewhere that brings in, why do you doubt yourself so much? Why do you feel like other people can have this but you can't?
Mm,
And that's what I find when I get into people that don't feel like they can trust themselves. It's like,
yeah,
why? Where did that get ingrained in you that you can't trust that?
yeah.
And sometimes it's a religious structure. I grew up
Mm,
Catholic. Catholics, you gotta go to the priest, you gotta go to confession. They're the ones that can fix it, not us. And
mm,
so, there's all these constructs out there that we're as society, we're overcoming that stuff and starting to realize that we have great abilities and gifts, and we can heal ourselves. We can go into a meditative state and talk to that universal mind of ours and go into these kinds of journeys and talk to our bodies and to our higher selves and to other versions of ourselves too, and get answers. So
yeah. And to learn lessons, because I feel like people get quite attached sometimes to the story where it's not necessarily about the story. It's about what is the
yeah,
lesson, and let's learn it so we can get off this like wheel of karma, this self-perpetuating cycle. So, and then and in the same breath, it's like everything is just a visual in the mind of God. Everything's just an image in the mind of God. So what is real and imaginary then as well? And is it really worth having that, internal debate? If we're so much bigger than we actually are. Yeah.
yeah,
Okay, so then the
absolutely.
next one, yeah. Is there anything else? I mean, that's getting very philosophical, so let's not go there.
Yeah. Like we could go
Okay.
off on a whole tangent on that. So we'll keep going.
No. Okay, so the next one was about expectations. We as practitioners never know what to expect. So like now we're giving you a generalization, which we've seen the general majority of people, fall under. But generally we never know what to expect, but also we can definitely, I usually advise people, focus on intentions before your session. Don't focus on expectations, because we know if we have really high expectations, we will always be disappointed. So yeah, managing expectations, because I found that expectations can make or break a QHHT session. I think
So
don't expect to come in and see little green men, or have convoluted universe kind of material. Come in and know that this is specifically perfect, and everything is aligned for you to get to this practitioner on this day and to get the information which is unique to you, even if it is potato digging lives or some current life or whatever. It's perfect for you, and once again, there the trust comes in.
yeah.
Yeah, and it's like this technique is everything you expect and it's nothing you expect. So like we need to like develop and consciousness when it comes to this kind of thing.
And I'm going to
Yeah,
say
and what
you're going to get exactly what you're supposed to get. There was a part of you that pushed you to do the session, that got you to make the call or set it up. And then as soon as you commit to that session, you get signed up to that session, your work is already starting. There
mm,
are the higher self is already working on you to get you ready. The books you're seeing, the videos
mm,
you're watching, the TV shows, the conversations you're having, they're all lining you up for more information when you get to your session. And it's incredible every time when I get in there and they're like, man, that's just wild because I just had this whirlwind of information that was coming in, you know, from the first time I talked to you to the session, and all this information was coming in. I'm like, they were getting you ready.
mm.
So don't be surprised when things already start happening before you even come in.
Exactly. I had a lady a couple of weeks ago, and she was trying to decide whether to come because she was going to move like in a week or something, and it's crazy when you're moving. And then she was still deciding and back and forthing, and then she sent me like a WhatsApp or like a message, and it was a car in front of her. And guess what the number plate of the car was in front of? Just guess, Tracy. What was the number plate?
Well, a lot of times it's either 111 or 444. What did she have?
More direct. No, it was Dolores. Can you believe it?
Oh, it actually had a name on it. Oh
Yes,
my
it
goodness.
was a
Oh yeah.
personalized number plate, yeah, of the car. And she was listening to Dolores'
Wow.
podcast, and then it said Dolores, and then she's like, okay, to come for a session. So yeah, it's like the universe
Wow.
warming itself up for you.
Well, I'll tell you what. So if you don't know, Dolores has passed away, and she, one of the messages that came to the family after she left was that she could do more on the other side than she could do here. And I'm sure at first they were like, what do you mean? But now so many people are like, man, I feel like Dolores herself came to me and said, be a
Mm,
practitioner or get a
yeah,
session done and that kind of thing.
yeah,
And no doubt in my mind, she does it. So,
yeah,
yeah.
exactly. Okay, so then the next one was, people who maybe are not satisfied with just seeing going into current life. Where a lot of trauma, of course, is in childhood, or as we call it, potato digging lives, which is kind of like a little bit boring lives, past lives. But like I said before, the higher self or the subconscious will take you where it's appropriate to go for you at that time. So, I think we kind of covered this already, that it's not about throwing the baby out with the bathwater. And
Yeah.
also then realizing, and seeing the synchronicities with your own life, which there always is some kind of like theme that is like touching on your current life, and or just some kind of inspiration that you need to see.
I
Because
have
I remember when I
information
did.
on that. The somebody somebody let Julia know that they asked why are so many people going into current lives when someone was in
Mm,
session, and the answer to
yeah.
that was that looking at past lives was really brought to us to help us heal the karma, like help
Mm,
us to get through that quicker. Well, now that everybody's on board with doing that and healing that karma, and a lot of people are working on ancestral healing and all the different things,
mm, yeah.
there's not as many people going into past lives anymore. They are going into current life. And so
Mm,
it's happening more and more, just like, we were talking about how when Dolores did the sessions early on, people went deeper because they had to get through a bigger veil to get to the higher self. And now we don't have that veil, so we don't go as deep. Well, this also is occurring now. We have
mm,
this evolution of we don't have as much karma on our plates. Now we're healing just our own personal wounds versus our wounds against each other. And so now it's more
mm,
current life. and forward. So just
Mm,
sharing that, that was shared with me. So I thought that was pretty cool that there's actually a reason why more and more people are going into current life. So
that's
not to
interesting.
say you won't have a
Yeah,
past life, but yeah,
yeah,
like you said, your higher self knows which one's more important to take you to in your session. And
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I feel like people come in like waves. It's like waves of just extraterrestrial lives, a couple of weeks that it's like current life, then it's like past lives. But I also got information that, some people, like I said to you and to Julia during, the interview we did was, sometimes people, it's too traumatizing for the person to go into current life because something happened there and you don't want to open a can of worms that the person actually can't deal with in this current life. So they take you to like a similar kind of theme, dream from the past life, with the same lesson, and then that lesson can be integrated without the actual like going through the physical
yeah,
re-traumatization. Yeah, and then
yeah,
sometimes
it's so
people,
brilliant.
yeah, it's
It's,
true, right?
yeah, good.
And then sometimes it's not always necessary because people expect to come and they want to see like extraterrestrial lives, and sometimes it's not. We aren't shown these things because our focus needs to be on our current life and our current situation, and to be firmly
Yeah,
rooted in reality right now. But because if we get information like that, it's going to send us down another wormhole, rabbit hole. We're not actually going to deal with the problem we have with our spouse right now, or the conflict in our house right now. So, they also don't want to distract us and like take us off course. So it's very important to know that it is like whatever you get is so perfect for you, in your
mhm,
current vibration, your current frequency. And like we said, the practitioner that you see on the day, astrologically, numerologically, everything is aligned for you to be there on that day. And it is absolutely perfect. Have faith, have trust that you will get exactly what you need out of the session.
yeah.
Not necessarily want, but need.
So true. That's the key. It's not always what we want, always what we need. Even the ones that feel like they went wonky, like, "Oh, I don't
Mm,
feel like I went under or I was in my way too much." And it's like, no, I've asked, why did that happen where I had somebody in their higher self and then the critical mind kept jumping in and then we'd take her back into the higher self and go back into the questions.
mm,
At the end, I asked, why did the critical mind, why was it allowed to keep coming in? And the
mm,
answer was this person needed to understand when they're receiving their answers and when
mm.
it's the ego.
Exactly.
And so they let
Exactly.
the ego kept creeping in because she was feeling what it was like to get her answers from the higher self and then what it was
Yes.
like to have that ego come in. And so it was actually part of her session of one of, how does she know when she's talking to her higher self? Well,
Mm,
now you have that contrast.
yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah. I think it's also perfect when the ego comes in because then you know what it's showing you where your blockages are. So it's
absolutely.
I mean you can channel the ego and it's still gonna like serve a purpose. Even that is perfect in a session at the end of the day, even though you don't feel like it afterwards. Um and like even like I said earlier, you will go into a life that is also it also is about the timing of your life, what's going on in your life. Like for instance, the first QHHT session that I had done on myself was a couple of years, maybe 2 years ago, and so I have like so many Middle Eastern lives, it's not even funny, which is why I'm still very much attracted to the Middle East. I have a lot of unfinished business there, so I like always go in and out. So I saw a past life which I was like a shepherd, but I was like so psychic, and I saw all these colors, like these. I was like in this like field with the sheep and at nighttime, and all these colors just kept on popping up, and I was like super psychic, and
Yeah.
and I had to see that at that time to know that I have those gifts in this life, and I need to like almost channel that parallel life. And then I was able to do that, and get more in touch with my spiritual side. And then I did another QHHT session on myself, and someone did it on me. Obviously, it's not self hypnosis. I'm not that talented. And then I just went into current life because I was going through so many issues with my family and stuff. And then I went into like a baby scene and like a toddler scene, which was completely relevant as well. So it's very much about what's going on in your life, what you need to learn at that. So I
Hmm.
sometimes have repeat clients. We don't see too many repeat clients because QHHT was not designed to create dependency.
Right.
It was designed, to be more self-empowering, to get the answers within. But I do see clients sometimes every couple of months, someone will return, and then the information is completely different, what they need to learn. And of course, the issues are then completely different, and the questions are
Yeah,
different. So it's like even perfect in that sense.
absolutely. Yeah. And sometimes it is a one and done. Sometimes it's you come in and you deal with all these crisis things that you're going through and then you get to clear that energy, and then you'll get that nudge to come in again. And when you come in again, now you're open to that other thing that you had the
Ah,
expectation for, right? Now you get to explore something
yes,
different because you're freed up from that third dimensional density, and now you're
yes,
able to reach some different information, and it's really cool. Yeah,
exactly. Is there anything you'd like to share about one of your QHHT experiences that someone did on you?
that someone did on me.
Mm,
So I've had one, my very first one that I did. I was an oracle uh, on, I don't think it was Earth, but if it was kind of really ancient Earth, like before, even before probably Atlantis and that type of thing. But I was this oracle, and I lived hundreds of years, and it was really interesting to be, I was just loved the people that lived there in this village and all this stuff, and be able to feel those
mm,
feelings and be able to have that experience. And that there was one point where I'm watching the people walking up a path, like I'm on the path with them, but then I realize none of them can see me. Like in that life I knew none of them
uh,
can see me, but in my session I'm like, well, no one's seeing me. And I realize that I'm
yeah.
remote viewing, and I'm still in the palace
Mm,
and in my little room with my crystal. I had like this huge crystal ball thing. Um, and anyway, so I realized that as as much as I loved all of these people, I never actually had any direct relationships with any of them because I wasn't among them. I was watching over them through this being the oracle of this place. So it
mm,
was really an interesting life. Then I had one not too long ago that I was just kind of
mm,
cracking up about because I was like, why did I see that? And how many people say that? Why did I see that? I was this arrogant man, back in probably, like I call it the Columbus days. There was ships and everybody was exploring and trying to find new lands and all the things. And I came from this very wealthy family, and I'd gone to
mm.
all the private schools. Um, and so I was the captain of one of the ships. And I mean,
Yeah.
like I knew things like the what do you call the ones that run the boat, the boat hands or whatever.
Captain? Oh, the sorry, oh, yeah, yeah.
But the ones that are actually doing all the work, I was the captain. I was dressed in all the uniform,
Captains.
I looked purty, and I was well groomed, and I was such a princess. And all these people that were on the boat doing all the grunt work, I had zero compassion for them. They were all here because
Wow.
they were they were my means to make my name. And
Mm,
that's the only way I saw them, was like they were there was no connection to anybody. So, and the practitioner did a good job because she we looked at the family. I was married and I had a child, and it was a little boy, but I didn't love
mm,
her. It was more like this made sense financially for these two families to come together, so we got married. The little boy was too young for me to mold him into my little mini me yet, so
mhm,
there was no connection to the child. There was no connection to my family because
mm,
they were, I was raised by probably the house staff or something because they were busy making their name. And so here I am on this quest to
mm,
make my name. All the ones working on the boat for me were young men that hadn't been married yet because they could be away longer. They didn't
mm,
they didn't pine away for their wives or their families. They were young and one, ready to explore. So here I am out there exploring, and kind of ruthless about it. Didn't care about these people. And what happens is I end up dropping some of them off on a portion of land that we came across, and then took the rest of them. We wanted to keep exploring, and then we were going to come back and get them. We keep exploring. We hit a storm, a huge storm out at sea, and it takes us all out. But here I am on the boat watching these young men get thrown off the ship.
mm,
And I'm more annoyed that they couldn't figure out how to navigate the ship through the storm than I am about worrying about them being thrown off the ship. That's how cold
mm.
and disconnected I
Yeah,
was. I was just like,
crazy,
what is happening here? Why would I see a life like that?
crazy.
But
Yeah.
then, when we got to it, it was like, uh, the the reason for that lifetime or viewing that lifetime was
Yeah.
because I was so focused on making a name for myself
Mm,
that I was detached from humanity. It was such a
mm,
drive. So in this lifetime, it's
mm,
not about making a name for myself, it's about humanity. And
mm.
so it was to see how those things tie in. So I'm sitting there in this lifetime going, well, why am I seeing this? I'm such an ass. I'm just like
Yeah,
seeing this horrible lifetime of myself. And but that gave me the contrast. Now I know what it was like to
exactly.
seek, fame and leaving my imprint on the earth. And then of course I die in the storm and there's no
Mm,
legacy. So
yeah.
it didn't work out for me. But anyway, so yeah. How about you? What have you had?
Yeah, I just had those two. I think the most important ones were the Middle Eastern one and the current life. Yeah, the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I just want to maybe talk about before we close off because I think we've been going almost an hour now. Just helpful hints. So I think the first one we said already was just to get back to the topic. Um, the first one was just trust and say the first thing that comes to mind. We all know these kinds of things.
Yeah.
Which means don't analyze what you're thinking, don't analyze what you're seeing, just tell me what you see, tell me what you're thinking. That's all. First thing, you know. Um, and that's the first helpful hint. The second helpful hint is just talk and talk a lot, which means you start talking and you just go into flow. You go into almost like verbal diarrhea. Just keep on talking. Don't go
Yeah.
quiet because then the ego comes in, questions, doubts, judges
Well, and
everything.
the more you
So
talk, the deeper you'll go into the hypnosis too. So
exactly.
talking
Yeah.
is your best friend. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's almost like a quiet confidence that comes through, isn't it? That kind of voice. Because you're also a channel, Tracie, right? What does that feel like when you with the Octurians?
Oh yeah, you got to trust it. I mean, if you want an example of going with the very first thing that comes to mind, that's
Mm.
channeling, sure. And
Yeah.
just bringing in the first time it's kind of like, am I making this stuff up? But I mean that's where our mind goes. Am I making this stuff up? But it's just trusting it and letting it flow and come through. And by the time I was done doing my first channel, I was just like, I can't even make that stuff up. My mind would have never even gone there.
Exactly. Yeah.
So that's where that trusting and just allowing that flow of information to come through and
Mm.
just do your best to be in the flow of what's showing up, that first thought, and just being out of the way of it. I also tell people, if you're struggling with that first thought, make it up,
Mm.
because it's your
Mm.
imagination that opens up that
Portal.
connection.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is the
So
right
start
phrase.
making it
Start
up.
making.
People are like,
Yeah.
but I already feel like I'm making it up. Then I do make it up. And it's like, yeah, start making it up, because maybe those first few things you say are coming from you making it up. But then the rest of that story, I promise you, it's going to start flowing and
Yeah.
just, yeah. What do you imagine it would be like to be walking on a path in the middle of Scotland? What do you imagine that would be like to
Yeah.
be out in the middle of the Arctic, whatever. What
Yeah.
do you imagine? Yeah.
But why? I'm
So,
wondering why what that triggers people. Because think about it, everything around you was once a thought in someone's head, in someone's imagination, right? So whatever you
yeah,
visualizes materializes. So that's actually our connection to God. That's our God spark. Is our right brain and the theta brainwave, which is where we want to be in the first place when it comes to QHHG. So
yeah,
like that argument's not valid in this case, you know.
right.
Yeah.
People
Okay.
want you
So.
there.
Sorry.
Yeah. We want you in that space. Yeah.
Yes.
Just
Exactly.
just
Yeah.
play. Don't take it serious. Just play in it.
Mm.
The more information will come through, the more you relax and just have some fun
Yes.
with it. And yeah,
Yeah.
so
Yeah. You have
that's always
permission
my
now.
advice.
You have
Hmm.
permission now to get lost in your imagination. I think it's when we're children, we're told, no, you're too much imagination. Like, focus on the pen, get out of your imagination. I think that's maybe where it comes from, right? Is to focus on
Yeah.
the physical, not the internal. Okay, so yeah, that's it. First thing comes to mind, talk and talk a lot. What was was there another one? Any other helpful tips you have for people?
Yeah. And I'll also tell people if you feel like you're in there and we're getting to your questions and I'm asking the questions and you feel like you stop yourself from answering because that was something you read in a book, a movie you watched yesterday, a conversation you had, or the same answer that popped in when you wrote the question, say it
Mm,
because you don't know the next
mm,
question I'm going to ask. And the next
exactly.
question I ask might be the answer that you've been looking for. So
Mm,
just say the first thing that comes to mind, even if it feels like, well, I'm just pulling that because I watched a movie about that yesterday. Or, it's like, say it anyway and let's see where it
mm,
goes. And
yeah.
so that's important too. Just again, trusting that first thing and let it go, even if it feels like you're pulling it from an experience you had. Because remember, when you signed up for that session, they started working on you and giving you the
Mm,
information so you would have it when you got to the session. So our world is always talking to us, and that's so exciting to me. It's like everything around you
yes.
is telling you something, and your subconscious mind is picking it up. So when we ask those questions and you say those things, it's going to help trigger those memories of what the world's been talking to you about this whole time. So,
Yes, very good point. I really like that. Yeah. And then also the people, people that say they can't visualize, I always ask them, well, can you see your house from outside? Everyone, I'm like, describe your house from outside. Yes, they know
yeah,
exactly. They can describe the whole thing like there. You can visualize.
yep,
Kind of like when you were a
that's your
child,
third
you
eye.
lived in your imagination. So just connect with that
Yeah,
kind. And that honestly, the moment I say that to people, then no one has a problem visualizing. I'm like, you can see
same
an apple,
here.
right? Yeah, they can see an apple or
Yep,
a rose or whatever. They can always see it. We all can do it. We did it as children. We lived there. It's just about reconnecting with that and
yeah,
yeah, using it.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
everyone can visualize. We just all can do it differently. Like
Yes.
I will get flashes. I'll get like a picture or a
Mm.
flash or knowing, just a knowing. It's
Yeah.
like, okay, well, I know that my car is silver and I know that it's got four doors. And as I start describing it, because I know that it has that, now all of a sudden I have a picture of it in my head. I can visualize it. And we've all eaten an apple. What does that apple look like? How does it taste? All the
Mm.
things, right? Well, now let's take a step back from I always have them pick the apple out of a tree. Now let's step back
Mm.
from that. Look at the tree and then what's around the tree. And that helps them
Mm.
also to be like, okay, oh, I see. Yeah. Oh, it's an orchard. Oh, there's a house to the right. Oh, you know, giving
Yeah.
you that permission to, you're going to start here with something and now let's evolve it. So, yeah, you have this silver car with four doors. Where's it parked? What else is around? What else do you see?
Mm.
What do you notice? You know, give yourself permission to get into that imagination and play with that. What kind of
Exactly.
day is it?
Yeah.
All the things.
Yeah. And like we said, it doesn't have to be a TV screen. It can be a fuzzy image. Just go with the flow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it can be a knowing, it can be a
Mm,
sense. It doesn't have to
mm,
be a picture. It's all coming
yes.
from that third eye. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Or it could
Yeah.
just be colors, on a black background. But even that can be like the most profound session you've ever seen. So
Yeah.
yeah,
I get a
it's
lot
always
of people
perfect.
going into color. It's
Yeah.
fun. Mhm.
Yeah. I went into color. It was like so vivid and so beautiful. Like you can't stop looking. Like even when I close my eyes, I could still see all those colors in the black background. It's
Yeah.
just like and the feeling. Because for me it was that emotion, that like gamma state, that overwhelming feeling of love. Yeah, so profound.
Absolutely.
Okay, so that's everything I have on my list. I don't know if you have anything else to say. I think we covered mostly what people can expect for a general QHH. General person can expect for a QHHT session.
Yeah. I'm gonna say one more thing. When you go to
Mhm.
your QHHT session, plan to have some fun. Even
Yes.
if you're coming in for cancer or illness of any kind or aches and pains, our healing comes from a place of childlike wonderment. It comes from a place of love and joy and happiness. So come in and play with us because it's in that playfulness that you're going to find your answers and you're going to find your healing. So the more you can be in that place, I think that you let go of those expectations, you let go of the attachment of what this is going to look like. You get in it and let it be your own session and whatever shows up for you, that's going to be your story now. Now that's yours. And have fun with that. Be excited about that. That'll help.
Perfect. Okay, so if people would like to get in contact with me, I do sessions in Cape Town, South Africa. You can just go to my website, Eric, or yeah, you can email me on erica.qhht.co.za. Tracie is a very talented channel. I will just link in the description one of the channeling sessions I did with her and Arcturi and Daniel. And if Tracie, if people want to get hold of you, just tell us, your details and also what you're up to the next couple of weeks.
Okay, so my details are that you can find me at traciemahan.com. I am located in just outside of Portland in Oregon. So if you're in my area or would like a QHHT session, those are in person only. We will state that because we do other things as well that we can do online. Those are in person only. I do ascension sessions and channeled readings. I also do oracle card readings, and I think you do some of the same kind of things, Erica. So if you're interested in that, go to traciemahan.com. You'll find your information for those things there. Depending on when this is released, I'm usually about once a month, sometimes twice a month. I'll do 1 hour journey work with Daniel that you can sign up for. A lot of times I'll try to do a donation-based one and then maybe a regular one where I do actually set a price for it. So there's a price for everybody in there somewhere. If you're interested, you can check that out on my website as well. So I think I got it. But yeah, I do have some workshops coming up. So come check it out.
Oh, thank you so much, Tracie. Thank you for your time and thank you for your service to humanity. And all of the best to you. I hope to speak to you soon again.
Thank you so much for having me, and all the same to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.